Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that we recorded this on the day that the fires in Los Angeles started. And Marsha talks quite a lot about her visit to Southern California and all of the places that she went. If you are a listener from that area, our hearts go out to you, and we hope that you are safe from these tragic fires. You might find it a little difficult to listen to all of the places in LA that Marsha visited while she was down there. We are sending you all our love, and we hope that all of our listeners in Southern California are safe. Happy New Year, Marsha.
Oh, yes. Happy New Year.
It's our first recording of the 2025.
Yeah, I know. I have a cold to start the new year.
Oh, no.
So we'll see how I do getting through this this episode.
Yeah.
Well, did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, it was great. We went to Sarah's, my niece's, for Christmas Day. My mom and my brother and my other niece were there. And then, Sarah and Kai and the two kids. So it was really fun. We had a nice Christmas Day. Kind of a quiet Christmas Eve. Trying to think if we did anything special. Oh, I made dinner. That's special.
That's special, yeah.
I actually cooked. And then on New Year's Eve, we actually went to Odonata Winery, which is like right near our house. It's on, it's right off of Highway 68. So when we would go to Fort Ord on Reservation Road, when we'd go there to walk, if you go the other way off of Highway 68, I don't know, 5 miles, not very far. There's a winery there that we are now a member of. So we went over and picked up some champagne for that night, and we did, we had a glass of wine and we sat with the dogs, and there was lots of people there. I was kind of surprised. I didn't think that would be like a thing people would be doing during the day on Christmas Eve, or on New Year's Eve, but they were. And then we came home and had fondue. So yeah, we had a really nice holiday, and you were very busy, I saw.
I was very, very busy. And I think that's why I'm sick now.
Yeah.
I think it was Thanksgiving preparations, and then I did do Christmas early. I had to get the house ready for the dog sitter, and I had to pack, and then we left Christmas Day, and then we just hit the ground running. I mean, so I went to visit my friends, Peter and Joel, who bought the house in Palm Springs, and my brother came along, and their friend Ted was also on the trip, and super fun. Really enjoy everybody. I especially enjoy Ted. He's from Georgia. And I don't know what it is about people from the South, but they have really, really good stories to tell. So they had rented a minivan. And so Ted just would sit in the back. And so Ted just kept telling us stories about growing up in the South. And very, very funny and amusing. He's just a funny guy anyway. So that was just really fun. I was kind of wondering what it would be like to fly on Christmas Day, and it was really easy. We moved through security pretty quickly, and everybody was very cheerful, and a lot of people had, TSA, and, well, maybe TSA didn't have Santa hats on, but a lot of, like, the flight attendants on our flight, they all had reindeer antlers on their heads, And it was kind of fun. I mean, it was not difficult at all. And they're not huge, long lines. They picked us up at the airport. We arrived about noon, I think. And we drove back we flew into Ontario, California, which is about an hour west of Palm Springs. And then they drove us back into Palm Springs. We had lunch. And then what did we do? We did something. I can't remember now what we did. But we had dinner that night at an old Palm Springs restaurant. And honestly, I'm going to say too, every time I say Palm Springs, they actually live in Rancho Mirage. Mm-hmm. And there's La Quinta, and there's Indian Wells, and there's Cathedral City. There's all these different communities. But as I said, I think the last time, they're all sort of strung on up the valley. Like, they're just all these, they all kind of, I can't even tell when I'm crossing from one to the next. Yeah. They all are smushed together. But anyway, we went to a place called Wally's Desert Tortoise. We went there Christmas Day for dinner. And I was like shocked that any restaurants were open Christmas Day. So, and they had gone to this restaurant. They had gone the night before with their friend on Christmas Eve. So they were open Christmas Eve and they were open Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. And we went to lunch someplace in Palm Springs. They were open on Christmas Day, So it was I was surprised that they were open. But anyway, we ate at a ton of restaurants, really nice restaurants. And we just did a bunch of really fun things. We went to, the one thing that I wanted to do was to go to Joshua Tree. And so we did that our first full day. One day we drove through the I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Jacinto Mountains, Jacinto.
San Jacinto.
Looks like Jacinto. Okay.
San Jacinto.
Okay. We drove through those. Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And so different when you're up in the mountains than when you're down on the desert floor. Because they actually have trees up in the mountains, And then we drove to the Salton Sea, which is a lake, but it has twice the salinity of the ocean. So there's no fish there, and there's you can see salt, on the edge of the water.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting. Strange, a little strange too, but kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. We hiked to, it's called Taquis Falls in Palm Springs. We hiked to that. On the trip to the Salton Sea, we went to Salvation Mountain, which is I guess you could call it an art installation. Mm-hmm. And then I did not know what Slab City was and East Jesus, but it's like artists have just, I don't know who owns the land. Honestly, I don't know anything about it, but they got RVs and tents and all these little shacks that they've built. And it's just sort of an art. I don't know what's going on, who these people are, but I think they're just creating art out there in the desert. And it's really the desert. I didn't see any water or anything. So that was kind of interesting to see that. And we did celebrity home tours in Palm Springs. That was actually kind of fun. I didn't realize how many stars had houses there, and not really massive houses either. Like Lucille Ball. They didn't have. It was a place they would go to relax. So they didn't have these big mega mansions like they have today.
Yeah.
And then we went into. We had 3 nights in Los Angeles, so we went to the Huntington and the Getty, and we went to Venice Beach. And they took us out to Malibu. And,
wow, you saw a lot of Southern California.
Yeah, we saw a lot. And we went to, we saw Rodeo Drive, a celebrity tour. And I have to laugh, celebrity house tour, which I have to laugh because the celebrity house tour is basically you're looking at Taylor Swift's gate, and Rihanna's hedge. And I felt I posted this too, that I felt feels kind of bad. I mean, I kind of felt icky driving by these celebrities' houses. I mean, I don't know why. Why should I worry? They got security. Rihanna's got some guy sitting in front of her house 24/7, to protect her house. Mm-hmm. So, but it's sort of sad that because of their celebrity, they're in this position where they have to live behind these gated, a whole gated
like a compound,
with with cameras and alarms and security detail and, but anyway. So I took a picture of Taylor Swift's garage or gate, and I did feel bad about it. And then we went back, we came home, and then we went, as I say, we went back to, we went to Pasadena and that's where we saw the Huntington and and spent the night, and the next day got up and had a tour of the Gamble House, which I've always wanted to see the Gamble House.
I remember you were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And if people don't know, it's the green and green designed house. And it really is fascinating and interesting. And what's interesting about that house is the cost to build it was kind of extraordinary at the time. But today, if you had the money, you could build that house, right? Because thinking of celebrities, I just saw in the news that Beyonce just bought a $200 million house in Malibu. So if you have a spare $200,000, you might be able to build the Gamble House, but you could not get the materials.
Right.
I think that's the big thing. Is you cannot. I don't think you could get those woods that they use all different types. Lots of the whole thing is now is cedar, I believe, on the outside, or is it redwood? I can't remember. But the thing is, you could not get that wood today, the same type of wood at all. Is because like cedar today is not the cedar that is on the cedar siding on my house in Ballard, which is from the 40s. It's not the same. It doesn't last the same. So really interesting to see it. Very, very nice house. But anyway, enough of that. It was really fun, but we were going all the time, and you'd get back to the house or the hotel, and you had about 45 minutes to pull yourself together to get back in the van and go to get dinner. So I think that's why I'm sick. Because it was a bit too much.
You had a demanding tour guide.
Yes, I mean, and Peter he organized the whole thing. You saw my picture I posted on Instagram that the kitchen cabinets he had taped like index cards of everything we were doing. And then if something changed, he would move the restaurant around, to a different day. And he made all the reservations and got all the tickets, and he just did everything.
I think Aunt Betty, I think it was Aunt Betty who said if she had arrived to visit someone and seen that itinerary, she would have turned around and gone back home. I mean, super nice of them to have organized all of that for you. And I know, I know it was stuff you wanted to do, it was stuff Mark wanted to do. But really wow. When I saw that was a lot. I can understand why you're feeling like you need to recover. No,
they're such lovely people. And I really appreciate that Peter, he just organized all of this. And I really appreciate that. It was a lot though. And I mean, the really long day was when we went over the mountains and went to the Salton Sea and Slab City, and then drove back around the other side of the Salton Sea. And we left at, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning or something. Maybe it was 8:30 in the morning, and we didn't get back till 5:30, and then had to go to dinner at 6. Or maybe 6:30 we left to go to dinner. And I remember I had like an hour, and I was laying on that bed, and I thought, I don't think I can get off the bed. I don't know if I can get off the bed, but I rallied and got off the bed. And so it was, I don't want to sound like I was not appreciative, because I was really appreciative of what they did. But I mean, there was never any time to really just sit. There was the one free day that my brother and Joel, Peter was working, and my brother and Joel and Ted had gone to Home Depot, I think, to get something. And I sat out by the pool because it was about, 65. It was just a perfect temperature. And I just sat there in the sun, and it was, and knitted for a while. And for about, I don't know, I was there for an hour and a half. And then it was time to get in the van.
Fun.
Anyway, well, it was fun.
They aren't from that area, so they were seeing those same sites, right?
Yeah, because Joel is from Indiana and Peter's from Hong Kong. So they'd visited Palm Springs, over the years,
Right.
but living there now is a completely different story.
And some of those places that you went, maybe they hadn't been to, or had they been to all those places and wanted to show you?
They'd been to the Salton Sea, but they'd not been to like Slab City and Salvation Mountain, and they'd not done the Tech Keys hike. That one they'd not done.
Okay, yes. So they were getting some trips into at the same time. Well, that's nice. It sounds like you had a good time.
Yeah. No, it was really fun. I had a good time, but I'm in recovery.
Marsha's perpetual state, recovering from one exhausting adventure after another.
Oh, I know. Anyway, yeah, no, I'm in recovery. Anyway, I'm going to take a break from talking, and I'm going to let you talk, though. Are we ready to move on to projects?
Yeah.
Okay.
So before I start my projects, I am just going to mention, in case people didn't listen to the last episode and they're just jumping in now, I wanted to let people know that there are 2 looms available. One is here in Salinas. One of our listeners, Terry, let me know about it. And so she has a loom available. And I think it's a 4-harness. Loom. I'm guessing about 36-inch weaving width, but I haven't seen that one. And then also there's another loom in the Aptos area near me, Monterey Bay area. And it's a Leclerc. I don't know the brand of the other loom that I was talking about. She said it came from Berkeley. But I don't know if that means where she got it or where it was made. And then, so the second loom that's in Aptos is a Leclerc, and it is a counterbalance loom with a 36-inch weaving width 4-harness. So get in touch if you are interested in either of those looms. I don't have them, but I can put you in touch with the person who is trying to get rid of them. And I do think that they would both be a really good deal. I think that both of them are sort of motivated. Anyway, if you're interested in a loom, this is a time and opportunity if you're in Northern California or, somewhere around the Monterey Bay area, that you can come in and take a look, correspond with the person, get in touch with them, and then pick up a new to you loom. Join the weave along.
Yeah, there's still time.
There's still lots of time. Yeah, we're just barely getting started. Okay.
Yeah, really.
So, my projects. First of all, I started a new project. Well, I've started 2 projects since the last time and finished one. One of the projects that I started is a knitting project, and I'll just get that over with quickly because basically it's a sock. And Marsha and I bought some yarn in Walla Walla while we were there. And one of the yarns that I bought one for prizes, and I bought one in case I wanted to try it. And it is called, the color is called Zany Viney. And it's a Wacky Sacky, Wisdom Yarns Wacky Sacky is the yarn brand. I've never heard of that before. But with all of the wine in Walla Walla, I thought Zany Viney was a good colorway to get. It's basically purple and green. Purple grapes and green leaves, green vines and purple grapes. And I did not notice that the little tag had, if you opened it up, had the pattern in it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't notice that. I know that like the Arne and Carlos ones and the Regia ones, they have a little thing on their label. This one, I didn't realize that the label was like, folded, and there was an inside part of the label or tag. It actually was a tag, and I didn't notice that that it was folded. And so I didn't look to see what the pattern was. And actually I highly recommend that because it made it really fun as I started knitting with this to see what was going to happen next. Because I didn't know, I hadn't seen the little picture that tells you what the self-patterning is going to be. But this is the first self-patterning yarn that I've used for socks. I've made made a baby sweater once out of like a sport or DK weight self-pattern yarn. That was really fun. But this is the first time I think I've used it for, and I think I've used leftovers of self-patterning yarn of my mom's or Aunt Betty's to make baby socks. But this is the first full-size pair of socks that I made with this self-patterning yarn, and it's really fun. I'm enjoying it. And I never make stockinette socks where, you just do a little bit of ribbing and then do stockinette. I don't think, I don't know if I've ever made a pair of socks like that. I know I don't have a pair of socks like that in my drawer. If I have made a pair of socks like that, I've given them away to someone else. So that's kind of fun too, to have no changing of stitches to think about, not even knitting and purling. It's just literally going around and around and around, not having to look.
Favorite thing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite kind of sock.
And
just go around and around and around.
And I don't usually do that, right? Until I get to the foot. And sometimes I even do patterning. Sometimes I even do patterning on the foot. So anyway, I'm really liking these. I'm having a good time knitting them. I'm on the heel of the second sock. I think these were my Christmas Eve cast on. I quickly cast something on Christmas Eve night, or maybe Christmas Eve night. I cast them on and knitted on them a little bit so I'd have something to knit on the next day when we went to my niece's. And they've just been kind of hanging out beside my chair.
I'm looking at the picture of your socks on this pattern, or it's not a pattern, it's your own, but they're really cute.
Yeah, the design is great. And I was careful to pay attention so that I knew that I had started my cast on where the green and the blue changed colors, or not green and the blue, green and purple, where it changed from green to purple, did my cast on. And so then I paid attention to like what pattern repeat was that. When I got to the end of the first sock, I wound off a little ball. Oh, I should have used that ball I wound off for my heel. Oh, well, anyway, my socks are matching. And I have never really worried about that before, mostly because I haven't had this kind of striping pattern in yarn. So, but I've got them so they really are matching socks, which is cool. Except the heels won't be matching, which is okay. But I purposely wound off, when I took the yarn that I knew I wasn't going to need, so I could start the second one at the same place. I thought, oh, this will be perfect for the heel because it's similar to the other heel. And now I'm making a heel that's not similar to the other heel at all, which is fine. Yeah. The heels I'm doing by using I'm pulling from the center of the ball, and I'm making the heels by pulling. When I got to the heel, I'm pulling from the outside of the ball.
Okay.
So then I can just pick back up with the patterning for the foot.
So, okay. And do you cut the yarn when you're doing the heel? Okay.
No, I'm just, both ends of the yarn are connected to my sock. Okay. And then when I turn the heel and go about, starting back up to knit, I'll pick back up at where I left off on the sock and use that to pick up my stitches and knit across and all that.
The reason I ask is when I do, I've sort of gotten into the habit, well, not always, but when I do self-striping socks, sometimes I just do the heel in a contrasting color so it doesn't break the pattern. I do cut the yarn because I don't want to have that ball hanging around as I'm going back, especially doing the heel flap, And so it does, in theory, it's going to break the pattern because you leave
a tiny bit, yeah.
You've broken a tiny bit, at the most 10 inches, maybe at the most. But anyway, that's what I've often done.
Yeah.
But that being said, the pair I'm doing now, the socks I'm making, I just did the heel flap and the gusset and turned the heel, all that stuff, and then just started knitting it. And it seems to get back on track with the patterning.
Yeah.
So it's not messed up. It's just
even when you use a different yarn for the heel, when you pick up and start doing the gusset, it's not the same stitch count. So it's going to throw things off a little bit anyway.
Exactly.
So, unless you do a afterthought heel, which I have done before, but I don't really prefer. So
I don't like an afterthought heel. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
anyway. Okay.
So
Right.
but I'm not noticing really much of a difference even in the gusset part. It looks about for the patterning yarn with stripes, it's a little different, but for this patterning yarn, it looks exactly the same as what it was doing before, even though it's going over more stitches. And I am going to fiddle around. That's why I was kind of fumbling when I was explaining it, because I am going to fiddle around with where my yarn left off. So I was careful on the first sock and thought through, like, where do I leave off on the main body of the sock yarn so that when I pick up the stitches, I can grab that yarn right away and get going. And on this one, my yarn is on the wrong side. So I'm going to have to, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I'll probably just back up. And now that I'm looking at it, I think I'll just back up that row, that half a row. I don't know. I'm going to have to fiddle around with it, is what I'm saying, because the yarn that I'm leaving off and the yarn that I'm needing to pick up are not going to be in the same place. So some creativity will be required, but it's not hard to manage that. Yeah. So anyway, that's my newest project that I've been working on, is these socks. And then the one project that I finished, drum roll, my fourth warp of curtain fabric is finished and washed and sitting, waiting for me to finish the fifth warp of my curtain fabric. And that hopefully will be the last one. I only say hopefully because I don't want to jinx myself that something goes wrong. Because one of the warps, the reason I have had so many of them is that one of them ended up being too short for the number of curtains that I had to make. So, and I cannot explain what happened. So, barring any sort of weird thing where I can't explain what happened, this should be the last of the curtain warp. And I am doing my challenge. I didn't finish it by the end of January. By the end of the year. I did it the first day of January. I think January 1st or 2nd I did it. But I'm actually tying this new warp onto the old warp. So that, we'll see how that goes.
Well, when we talked on the phone a while ago, you were explaining to me how this works, and I think it's brilliant. Because you don't have to rethread all the heddles, right?
Right. Or the reed.
Or the reed, yeah.
So, but you do have to tie a knot in every single thread. So I think I read a lot about it. I read a lot of the posts. I looked up on Ravelry and read a lot of, there was one post in Warped Weavers, I think, or one question or one thread in Warped Weavers group about it. And I read a lot of that thread. I think I read all through that thread. And then I read a different thread somewhere else all about it. And the consensus generally seems to be that it's not really any faster in terms of getting the warp onto the loom. But if you have a pattern, or if you have something where you might feel like you have errors and you don't want to have to retest for all the errors, make sure that it's all clean, it avoids that. Because if you've tied them on properly to their right, partners, then if you had a properly threaded warp before, it will be properly threaded again and no errors. And so I thought, okay, it's worth a try to do this. I wish I would have thought of it, 3 warps ago. Since this is the exact same threading, right? But that's all right. And actually, this is wider. This is a wider batch of fabric than the rest of what I have woven, I'm pretty sure. I don't quite remember all the details of all the previous curtains, but these are full width of my loom. I did end up needing to use more of the warp, a little bit more of the warp than I thought to get the length of curtains that I wanted. And so I don't have a lot. I mean, I put a picture on Instagram, and you can see from that picture, I didn't point it out in the picture, but you can see from the picture that I didn't have a lot of warp left coming through the reed. I have little knots holding it so that it doesn't slip back through. And those little knots are very small and very close to the reed. So I don't have a lot of extra warp to tie onto. So that's making it a little more fiddly than it would otherwise be. But I think, but it's not bad. It hasn't been bad so far. I wound one bout of the warp. And then, the warping board got kind of full, not as full as I could have made it, but I thought I'm just going to stop and I'm going to try tying this on before I go any further. Just to see, is this going to work, or is this going to be crazy? And, don't even try it, but, abandon plans. And so I did that with the first bout, and it was fine. It worked okay. And I thought, okay, yeah, I can continue. So I continued winding the warp, and I'm kind of alternating between winding a bout of the warp and then tying them on, and then I'll wind a little bit more and then tie those on. So I'm on the second section of warp that I'm tying on. So anyway, I made my challenge something new to me. I didn't quite get it before the beginning of the year, but I'm considering that as a challenge that I have accomplished. So, and that's really about it. I am happy with the curtain fabric that I took off the loom and washed. I think I might have mentioned that the weft was stiffer than the weft I was using before. But the fabric matches. It's a little dark. Okay. The fabric is a little bit darker because the warp was a tiny bit darker. But again, the sun bleaches them out pretty quickly. And so it's not going to be noticeable at all. I mean, it isn't noticeable. I showed him to Robert and he didn't notice.
Oh, good.
But I know what I'm looking at.
He has a critical eye.
Yeah. So, but I knew what I was looking for, and another washing, basically another washing, and the linen, the single ply linen that is in the warp. It's still a little stiff, but one more washing, which I'll do after I sew the curtains. I'll throw all the curtains into the wash together at the same time. They'll soften up real nicely. So I'm not worried about that at all. I really, the fabric is beautiful. I'm really bored with the project. But that's a lot of yards. I mean, when I started thinking about it, it's like they look like little tiny curtains for little tiny windows. But it's a significant yardage of fabric. So this last one was basically 6 yards of fabric. And then this next one will be 6 yards of fabric. And then I think one of the ones that I wove was closer to 8 yards of fabric. And then I had the one that was only like a yard of fabric because I only needed one curtain. And I had to use the exact same yarn, and I couldn't add on to that warp because I didn't have enough yarn to do more than just that one small warp. So anyway, almost done with this. No one will have to hear about it again soon.
So is that for all your projects?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I've worked on. I thought yesterday, I know what you should do tomorrow before you record, since you're not recording till the afternoon. You should try on your Graphito. Put it on, try on tubing, and try it on and see how much longer you need to make it and whether you're ready to start the sleeves. Did I do that? No. But I have a good excuse. I cleared Christmas out of the kitchen. I cleared Christmas out of the dining room. We put our 2 couches out on the front driveway. One of them is gone.
Good.
Yeah.
Because new furniture comes, what you said on January 15th?
The 15th is when we're getting the new love seat and chair. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a good reason I didn't go get my Graphito, but it was funny because I did think last night, oh, I know what I'll do before 2 o'clock. So I don't have any news on that project. I hibernated the vest because I have to rip it out and decide what next after I rip it out, and I haven't ripped anything out. So anyway, nothing else to report on project-wise. Oh, I am going to say one thing, though, project-wise. Our friend Kelly made a rug that was in not the most recent handwoven, but the one before that, the summer, I guess is the summer handwoven.
Oh, okay.
And it's called, it's a chenille, basically it's a chenille rug. So it's the handwoven large scale version of the rug that's in my living room, where all these little chenilles are woven, which is like a very small, a chenille is like a very small woven warp, and the wefts stick out the edge. Like as fringe. Okay. There's weft fringe on the edges, right?
Okay.
And on the carpet we talked about the carpet a long time ago in one of our episodes when I was repairing it. So, it's a couple of warp threads with weft going through it. And then the weft fringe is kept, and then that chenille is then woven to a backing. Well, this rug is the larger scale version of that. So you make all this chenille by weaving it first with your scraps, right? And then you take that fabric off and you cut it in strips, and you make those little basically chenille strips with the weaving in the middle and the fringe on the edge. Long strips of weaving in the middle with fringe on the edge.
Oh, okay.
I'm not explaining it properly.
I'm just gonna interrupt. I think I found it's on her Ravelry page.
Yes.
Is it kind of yellows and grays?
It's for the van.
Okay. For the van. Okay. I see the making the chenille strips.
Yes.
I see that.
So once you make the chenille strips, then you warp the actual rug and you weave the rug with the chenilles that are woven. When I saw that project in handwoven, I thought, oh my God, that looks like it would be so interesting. And then I thought, I don't know if I even have enough yarn to do that, because I've destashed and used and gotten rid of a lot of what I would consider my excess yarn, right? But I have all that wool out in the garage. I have all that wool that's not spun, but I have wool yarn out in the garage that I've had forever from, it's my dead weaver stash. It really was someone who died, and the guild was selling their stuff at a real low price in order to, fund some things they wanted to do. And so I have all of that, and I've never quite known what to do with it. I made the acorn sweater. Remember when we did the custom fit sweaters? So I made that sweater out of that yarn, the coned yarn. I made the gala tunic out of coned yarn. I think in both of those cases I held it double. I still have a lot of it, and I was thinking, maybe I'll make blankets, but I'm not sure it's soft enough. to make a blanket. Oh, well, I don't care if I have a soft blanket but it wouldn't be the kind of blanket I'd want to give to my nieces because they would think blankets have to be soft, right? So I've been kind of like, what am I going to use that for? And I suddenly got this bee in my bonnet that it would make really good chenilles for these chenille. So I'm dying, even though I have this project on the loom. My real temptation right now, and Christmas to put away and all that, my real temptation right now is to go out to the garage, gather all those cones of wool off the shelf, and bring them all in and start planning one of those rugs.
Do it, Kelly. You can put Christmas away anytime you want.
And my front room is so empty and, all vacuumed and nice. It would be the perfect time to bring in all dusty old cones of yarn into the living room and stack them all around and switch them to see which colors go with each other and create dust and dirt everywhere.
Robert would love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but that's definitely on my horizon as a fantasy project that I think will actually become a reality project. So that's it. That's it for me.
Okay. Well, I'll talk my projects. Okay, Graphito. I'll start with that. I finished the body.
Ooh.
I'm about ready to bind. But I have to bind off. And I was going to bind off while we record. And then I thought, I don't think that's a good idea because you have to bind off in pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And also I wanted to ask you too. So have you bound yours? You bound yours. No, you've not bound yours off.
No, because I haven't
right?
measured it. Yeah.
That's the whole point. So it doesn't say to do this, but would you bind it? So you're supposed to bind up. Let me rephrase that. You're supposed to do the ribbing in number 2s. I didn't have 2s. I just did the smallest, which is 2.5s. Whatever. It's not going to matter. Would you bind off with that same size needle? Or would you go up a needle size to bind off? Because I want it to be, I don't want it to flare out, obviously, but I want it to be loose. And I do like the stretchy bind offs, but would you still go up a needle size, do you think?
If you were doing a stretchy bind off, I would probably say no.
Okay.
But if I were doing a regular bind off, I think I would go back to the regular needle size. I don't know. That's a really good question. I can't remember if I don't think I've ever changed needle size, but it makes sense because I always worry that it's not going to be stretchy enough.
Yeah. I've, like sometimes you don't want it stretchy, like for example, a collar, sometimes you necessarily, because that kind of gives it some stability. But I know I made a shawl a lot of time. Well, actually I made a shawl and I bound off with the needle size, and that was a mistake. I ripped it out and I bound off with a larger needle size. I should have gone up even a larger needle size because it's not really as stretchy as I would like it.
Yeah.
That outside edge of a shawl. And so now pretty much all my shawls, I go up at least 2, maybe 3 needle sizes.
Oh, okay.
Because, but I don't know. And so I thought I'm not going to bind off while I'm recording. I have to think about it here for a minute. But anyway, so that's what's going on with Graphito. And then I have to pick up for, obviously, the sleeves.
I could have picked up for the sleeves and been done with the sleeves by now if I had just done that instead of trying it on. Right? I could have just left the needles in it and done the sleeves. Oh my gosh. Oh,
well, you know what? I don't. Okay. You know what I often do because I have those trying something on. It's what I did with pretty much all my sweaters. I don't use that try it on cable. Because I have interchangeable needles in there, you can there's a connector. Yeah. I just put my 47-inch long cable or whatever on to whatever I have in the sweater, and that's usually enough. And then I put, there's like the little stoppers that you screw on, and that's usually works out pretty well. But
yeah, no, I don't have those. But yeah.
Are we going to have a race to the finish line, Kelly? Are we challenging each other that we have to get this? Because we're now at the same place.
We're now at the same, well,
right?
Yeah, pretty close to the same place. I'm
'Cause
I'm probably at the point to do ribbing, but I'm not sure. That's why I need to try it on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm beyond. I'm further ahead
You
than
are. You are.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's Graphito. That's what's going on with that. Ames Beanie, I was going to take it to California with me. I did not. So it's just, I need to go fix that. And I've talked about for the last 3 episodes,
the cable.
I think. I have to fix that. And I'm knitting on the socks, the Arne and Carlos Regia, colorways 03760. And I'm just about, in fact, as we were talking, I have to figure out, because I've tried to like you were talking about matching the socks. I tried with these to match them so that the stripes will line up. So I think I have one more row and I'm going to start my heel flap. So that's it for projects, knitting projects. But we have to talk weaving, Kelly.
Ooh. Ooh.
Now, you're
a
little bit exhausted from, well, you're a little exhausted. I'm a little exhausted from this subject because we had about a 45-minute conversation about weaving before we even started recording.
Yeah, that's true.
One good thing about having a cold, nobody has come to my house.
Oh, nice.
Nobody's coming over to visit me, or nobody's coming over to have lunch, or, feed me lunch, that kind of thing. So I wound the warp. I just finished, right before we recorded, I finished winding it. And I'm making 4 tea towels. And this is a kit that I bought through Eugene Textile Center. And it's called Morgan's Pinwheels and Checks. So I'm going to make 4 towels. There's a pinwheel, check, houndstooth, and basket weave. And in white and kind of a royal blue.
All right.
And I've already made mistakes, which we talked about. One of the mistakes is at the cross. I've missed on the it's 390 ends. So I just did 3 groups of 100, and then one group of, I was planning doing one group of 90, but I realized my colors don't end the right way. So I just did 400 ends, and I'll figure it out when I put it on the loom. But one of them, I made a mistake, or actually 2 of them, I see where I've missed the cross. And so I thought, I'm not going to fuss with it. I'll just made a note. And when I put it on, I'll just remember that they're not going to be in that cross. Yeah. And that's okay.
You'll see.
It'll be fine.
You'll see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go down tonight. I think is my plan is I'm going to warp the loom because I've got, as I say, I've got the chains are done, and I'm going to put the warp on the loom tonight. I think is my plan because I'm feeling kind of motivated. And Kelly, do you remember in the last episode you challenged me to like you were challenged to do a different technique, which is you're tying on to the old, or the, not the old, but the first warp you're going to tie on. You challenged me just to write all of my, just pick a day that I get to do crafty fiber stuff. So I've picked Tuesdays, and I penciled it in for the next 6 months. Every Tuesday, I'm going to do, it's just going to be my day to do whatever I want to do. Crafting, or I can just decide. I can also decide I don't want to craft, but I think it's going to be that's going to be the day where I just decide what I'm going to do. And I'm very proud of myself because I have a field of vision test next week, and on a Monday, and they called me and they had to cancel it. And they called me and they wanted to reschedule me for Tuesday. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Do you have anything Wednesday?
Nice.
And then, yes, I'm proud of myself. And then my back door, when I came home, the lock is damaged and I have to get someone to come in. So they wanted to come next Tuesday. And I said, I'm sorry. Do you have anything available? Or whatever, Thursday or whatever day it was. So anyway, my point is I'm really trying to, Tuesday's my rock.
Yes, you're protecting.
I've thrown Tuesday. Yes, I've labeled a rock Tuesday, and I've thrown it in a jar.
Very nice. I like it.
So I'm really, it's kind of, it's a really interesting thing when you just say this, you put it on the calendar as an appointment, I'm much more likely to keep it. It really is an interesting thing. I mean, and I know I don't have to be really hardcore about it. I can move it around if I want to, but I think just that idea of you just set one day aside, is,
and it's good that you had these challenges to that. You've had these really early challenges to that aren't really urgent, so they were things that you could very easily, I mean, I'm not saying it was easy for you, because I know that was, that was something that was always holding you back. So that's something that was, that was more difficult for you to do, but it isn't something where you really had to have a hard decision of, well, should I, shouldn't I can't get another appointment for 2 months. It wasn't anything like that. It was, do you have anything on Wednesday? Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, because it's not like that's the only appointment they have.
Right.
It's just the earliest one they have. Right. So
it was easy. It was, you got some quick reinforcement for protecting Tuesday. And that's really good that was able to happen early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just from a teaching
perspective. So don't call me on a Tuesday. Actually, I was thinking, I notice sometimes I'll text Kim and it says she has her notifications silenced or something. And I was thinking, I should do that with my phone on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
This is just anyway.
Yeah. There's you can just put it on Do Not Disturb. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and you don't get any phone calls. You don't get any texts. Yep. Yeah. Unless you go look for them. You won't see them.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm kind of excited about this. And then I'm really, I was thinking about making a rug. I had seen these rugs where they just take bed sheets and tear them into strips and then weave them. And then, where you actually take a bed sheet that has a pattern on it. Like, for example, the ones I saw, it was like a plaid, like a tartan bed sheet and then that creates like another pattern, like a completely different pattern, but another pattern. And I thought those are really interesting, but this chenille rug is pretty cool. Yeah.
I am glad that you have gotten your warp wound, Marsha.
I know.
And now you're ready to start putting it on the loom.
And I will say, it's an interesting thing too, because I am a very new weaver. This is really technically my third project, right? Other than what I did in class. And only the second project on this loom. And, but I find that, I reorganized the basement a little bit. I had to move the furniture around and stuff because when I moved the loom into the bedroom, I reorganized the rec room area. And, where I used to put the warping board, I don't have that. It was like a wicker fernery thing that it would sit on top of, and I don't have that anymore. So I just put it on top of a trunk, and I wound the first half of the warp on the warping board on that trunk, and I realized this is not going to work because it was too low, and that's why I made the mistakes. Is I couldn't see the yarn, the warp straight on. I was looking down on it kind of, and then I was bent over, and my back was killing me last night.
Yeah. So
this morning, I thought the best place to put it is on the kitchen counter. So I just have it, the bottom sitting on the top of the kitchen counter, and it leans up against the cabinets. And then the last two chains I made went really fast and no mistakes.
Yeah.
And my back is fine. But it was just, I just realized everything is sort of, this first go through is trying to relearn what I did because it's been a year, and then trying to figure out where things should be and what's the most logical place and what works. And it'd be really nice to have the warping board if it could just like hang on the wall or something, but I don't really have the wall space. You made the comment that you prop it up on the loom.
Yeah, that's what we learned in the class that I was, took at Hartnell. That was really the only space we had.
Yeah.
I mean, there was so much in that room, and the walls were brick. So there was no place to hang anything. And so she would have us prop it on. Not all the looms worked, but usually there was, at any point in time that someone needed to wind a warp, there was a loom that worked. and you prop it up on the breast beam of one of the looms and lean it back against the castle and then tie it. And if that was too slanty, you could always kind of change the angle and tie it differently. And so I just tie it down to my loom and I warp that way. And that's that. I haven't found that to be inconvenient, but if it might not work for you. It might not be tall enough because you're taller than I am.
Yeah.
It might be, it's a perfect height for me. For other people, maybe it was a make-do situation when we were doing it in class, but they made do with that setup. But in your own house, you don't have to do that. You can find the right height to put it.
Well, and what I really, so the weaving studio, Ben's old bedroom, I haven't done anything down there. That was sort of what I decided. I'm not going to worry about getting that organized until I start weaving. But I do have space down there. I should figure out what wall I could actually mount it to. It'd be nice to find hooks or something that would just hang on the wall, because it can't be permanently mounted on there because, well, I don't want to do that. But also Kim borrows it because we're just sharing the warping board. And but I could, on one wall, it'd be kind of nice to just put some hooks or something that I could just put it on that one wall. It probably would work.
Well, and I have a wall in my studio that I'd like to put it up on. I don't think I think I would put it up higher than what I would use to warp, just to get it out of the way. It's that wall that's on the back of the fireplace.
Right.
And I would put it up higher. But it would be great. I mean, another thing about having it up there is it would be a great way for me to pick cones out of my stash and like stick them all on the different prongs of the, just hang them on the prongs of the warping board to see if I like the colors together. Like, oh, okay, well, how about these 4 colors? What if I added this one in? Like, and then I could just leave it like that, and just look at it while I'm weaving in another project. I could be thinking about whether I like those colors together or not, and then I could, swap them out, and I don't know. Yeah. It would give me a place, not a permanent place, but a place to hang cones of yarn, just so I could look at them and evaluate whether I really wanted to use them in my next project or not.
Yeah.
But I haven't done
those cones from the garage.
Not those. Those are too big. But yes, it would free up room on the shelf for those cones from the garage. Actually, what I really like is there's like a stand. Somebody makes a stand, and it's actually meant for warping. They make a stand that's meant for using to wind your warp. You put your cones on the stand so that they're all together. And I've looked at that a couple of times thinking, I kind of like something like that. It would work really well for warping, but also it would just be another place for me to store some of my smaller cones of yarn, because the smaller ones don't stack very well. The large ones stack really nicely, but the smaller ones, they don't stack very well. They're like on spools, not cones. And so they fall around, I move one thing and then I have an avalanche. And so I thought, okay, maybe I need a little bit of a better, I need some of the yarn that goes nicely on shelves to go on the shelves. And the other yarn that doesn't go nicely on shelves has to go somewhere else. But I'm not at that point of organizing my yarn yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, I'm really glad that you got that wound and that you're getting excited about putting this on the loom, and you still have 3 months.
Yeah, I might get something else done too. Who knows? I might get a rug done. I might get a chenille rug done. I don't know. Probably not, but let's be realistic.
Honestly, a chenille rug, not for your next project, but a chenille rug would be a fun way to use up if you have a large stash of like sock yarn or worsted weight or whatever. be a good way to use up a large stash of that kind of thing. Knitting yarns that people have that they might want to get rid of. But I am tempted.
Yeah, I think of all the things I want to make. Like the rag rug I was talking about. The chenille rug is really, I'm interested in that. I also just want to make some napkins.
Oh, yeah.
Just, casual. They're not going to be elegant napkins, elegant linen napkins, but just casual napkins, and
I love the ones we have in the trailer. I love those napkins.
Yeah. So, and, once you warp the loom, as you know, if you put a rather large warp on there, you just make a bunch of towels. And I thought, here's the thing. I don't need any more hand towels. Honestly, I don't need any, but that's not going to, I don't need any more sweaters either. That doesn't stop me.
Yes.
And I don't need any more blankets and Afghans, and that doesn't stop me either.
Yes, let's be real.
Yeah, let's be real. But I thought, it's like if you just wind a warp and you make a whole bunch of different towels. Say you got 6 towels and you go to a house and you bring them a bottle of wine and it's wrapped in a hand woven towel. Yep. Oh my God, they'd be thrilled, and it's so easy, really, once you get that warp on there,
This
and they don't even have to match because they're going to,
This is the thing. I've given towels. So I've given towels to a lot of people. I gave towels to Cheryl and she said, I can't use these. I want to hang them up on my wall. I'm like, they are dish towels. She's like, I can't use these. I can't do that. I'm going to, hang them on my wall. Okay, whatever. You do you. I'm glad you like them so much. I sent the Pride towels to Robert's sister and her wife, and they love them, and they use them. There's 2 of them, and they put them together across the table like a table runner. And I said, you have to use them. These have to be used. And so, I told Robert to tell her that when he gave the towels to them. And she's like, well, I'm not going to use them as towels. We're using them as a table runner. See, look. I'm like, okay. No, people love them. They are the greatest gift. And not everybody needs or uses dish towels. I've also discovered if you have a dishwasher, I guess you don't use dish towels necessarily. But anyway, they make great gifts. And you can just have a box of towels that, someone comes over, here's a dish towel.
Yeah, or you
need a hostess gift. Bring dish towels.
Because I went to the place where Robert bought the desk, that shop in Seattle.
Yeah.
We know the owner, and so she had a holiday party, and my brother and I went to it, and I needed a hostess gift, and I thought, well, I don't want to, so I brought a little nice bar of soap. You know what? All this, if she got a hand woven dish towel, she would be thrilled. People would be it's like, it's what a different gift than a bottle of wine, because everybody was walking with bottles of wine, and that there was like 3 poincesettias arrived, and it was like, nobody brought a hand woven towel.
That's right. Well, thinking about how much people like the things you make, I brought dishcloths to someone. Like, actually, use them to wash your dishes, dishcloths. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I can't use them for that. I think I have to use them as coasters. Like, no, they're not coasters. They're meant to wash your dishes.
Yeah.
They're not that fancy.
Which also, we're just going on and on and on. We probably should end this. But it also makes me think about people using things, and they are going to wear out, right? I mean, but it's going to be probably years before a dish towel, a tea towel or whatever wears out.
Yeah.
But,
so my mom brought to Thanksgiving, just thinking along those lines, I don't want to interrupt your thought, but my mom brought to Thanksgiving a dish towel that I had made 20 years ago that she uses.
Yeah, she's still using it.
She's
and
still
it's
using
fine,
it,
right?
and it was like covering a hot dish that she brought, and it looked great. I mean, it didn't look brand new, but it was not wearing out. Yeah, so yes, they will definitely last.
Well, and what I'm going to say, and this touches on another subject too, but I gave Ben, I'm looking it up here in my Ravelry, I made the Mossy Lane hat. It's kind of a burgundy color from Stonehenge Fiber Mills. Shepherd wool worsted is what and I made it 2 years ago because I gave it to him for Christmas. And he, the other day, he came by with it. This is before Christmas. He came by and he came by the house and he has this new truck for putting up, his new truck, and it's, he's working all the time in that truck. So it's not, and I saw the hat sitting on the floor of the truck, and he's worn it so much, especially this time of year when he's putting up the Christmas lights. It gets wet and then it's on his warm head. So it's all kind of felted and it was laying on the kind of like his dirty boots go on the floor of and I thought, I'm washing that thing. So I took it back and I'm washing it. But I just thought, but my main point is I was sort of okay with it. Mm-hmm. It didn't bother me.
That's what it's
trashed.
For. It's
what it's for. Yeah. So it's different when you trash it while you're washing and blocking it. That's a different story.
No one wants that to happen.
Nobody wants that. Well, Kelly, I can hear one of my earbuds has failed in the battery. I'm running out of power here. So we'll probably should end this.
Yes.
Well, we'll say goodbye and we'll talk in 2 weeks.
Okay. And Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes.
Hope you had a great holiday season and are starting a nice, clean slate, fresh, shiny new year.
Yeah. Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.